know you make me float, boy, you really give me high. Ooh, I feel like I'm on dope, 'cause you serve me on a regular.
Hi everyone, we are back the next day. I am doing a voiceover. I tried to do a speaking video, but there was just too much noise in the background, music playing. There was air conditioning, there was a fan, there was birds talking in the background. So as you can see, our Kent asleep has cured and a lot has gone on. You can see by his face that we have added some eyebrows, and they really help to change, the shape of his face. Also, there's some blushing under his eyes and above his brow. I also did a little touch up on his lips. His mouth is repaired, so I am going to show you that silicone, how strong that silicone is. And that's the EcoFlex, where I actually, use that to do the repair. I've also added another layer of brown off camera. You can see where all of his nails were tipped. I apologize that I didn't show the whole thing, but it's an incredibly difficult job. As you can see, I was using a toothpick, and I'm thinking about getting one of those nail brushes where it's like super thin. But still, it's not that part of it. It's because it's silicone and it wants to spread. So I repeatedly had to go over the nails over and over and over again. So, but they turned out really well. I like the paint. I touched up on the blushing on the bottom of the feet and on the hands. So look at this stub, guys. I finished that stub. I would like to get one of those little bands, you know, but we'll see about that. But I think it looks very realistic. So at this point, I feel like there's not anything else that we really need to do to make Kent realistic. What we're going to do now is the matting. And so I am going to be creating I'll show you, I'll talk you through it, but I'm going to create the A and B, which is the silicone paint itself. So it has no pigment in it at this point. We don't put pigment in it, or we don't need to. If you wanted to, you could, but I don't. I just make sure that I add a lot of solvent. And in my case, I am using, sorry guys, I'm doing a lot of talking right now. The solvent that I use is Bob Ross odorless paint thinner. And I think there is no smell, and I think it washes off pretty good when I wash my hands, because, you know, invariably you're going to get some on your hands. Anyway, you're going to make a very thin paint, a very thin silicone. And, you know, you've probably seen, if you are a regular to my channel, you've seen me do this process before, but I rarely talk through it. So you will paint it on a very thin coat, almost non-existent. And how a lot of people fail with their matting is, oh yeah, let me stop here. This is the silicone Ecoflex that I used to repair his lip. I wanted you to see how strong that is. I can barely like rip it. I am pulling it very hard. So silicone is very strong, but it can be very vulnerable on spots like lips. So wherever you might be able to compromise, you know, between the fingers, things like that, it can be very, you know, unforgiving. But anyway, so I am going to paint on the thinnest layer possible and then dab almost all of it off. I'm going to use the cosmetic wedge this time because I think that pulls more than the sponge. It pulls off more than the yellow sponge that I was using. And plus the sponge really, it adds texture. And I don't really need to do that at this point because there is really not going to be very much silicone on there. Now, if you are doing this part and you make your mixture too thick, but you're still brushing, you know, you're brushing it on and then you're dabbing most of it off, you do run the risk of having little spots and balls that are thick. And so like you'll see that especially on the fingernails. That's where I have seen it when I've made that mistake. And the fingernails, instead of being defined, they look like little balls because you haven't dabbed the silicone off well enough. And so it's built up there. The thing about the matting powder, and it's called a lot of different things, but it's basically powder that absorbs this oily, shiny film, and it gives it a very nice human-like texture. Oh yeah, right here I'm checking to make sure I have enough bristles on the brush. This is like the last time I'm going to be able to use this brush. I even didn't use it when I matted his back. But the purpose of the matting powder is to change the texture, and it embeds into the silicone. Okay, and so you'll want to put a layer of this powder over the wet silicone and brush it off. Also, you want to make sure that you get every bit. So I did the inside of the mouth, I did the inside of the nostrils, also the ears. I'm not really paying attention to behind the ears because I have to turn this baby over. So that's one thing about a full body silicone. You can only do one side at a time and then let it cure. The best thing about doing this matting is that the powder dries out or cures the baby very quickly. And when I say cure, I'm not talking about this, kit is fully cured. That will take days. And I would say, I can't tell you how long it will take, but I would say I give it a full week. After a week, I know it's done. I know this baby is solid. But yeah, it's able to be handled after maybe an hour, but give it, like 2 hours. And then you can actually start the process to wash it off, especially if you go back and look in your container and you see that the silicone has cured in the container. Then it's cured on the baby. Generally it has cured on the baby. Also, before you do your matte coat, it's really a good idea to go ahead and wash your baby. Yeah, once it has cured on that side and cured enough where you can handle it, it's not a bad idea to submerge it in water with some Dawn dishwashing liquid and yeah, just give it a good washing, get rid of all of the lint, get rid of the excess silicone balls, and also clean your workstation so that you don't attract any more lint. I cleaned the workstation completely and vacuumed. I even picked up everything and put some pledge down. So we are going to continue on. I'm going to save my voice a little bit and we'll come back when I'm outside with the matting powder. we are now outside where I like to do the matting because that matting powder is very fine. And also, I love the light, the natural light. So let me just kind of walk you guys through what I'm going to do. So we've already added the silicone, and now it's time to add the powder. And I'm putting a lot. I'm using liberal amounts of powder. I'm going to brush it off lightly, gently. So we're going to make sure that it gets dabbed into the silicone and then brush all of it off. The whole point is to get it to embed into the silicone and then dust it off. And so that's why you don't want like big clumps of it. Now, one thing that I will say that I do is when I see shiny parts after I have put a layer on there, a layer of powder, and it starts to shine through, I'll go back over that part. So that's why you'll see me a lot of times take a long time, because I'll go back and dust over it again and then brush it off. And if I see more shine, I'll do it again. And then we'll see, you know, after this little one has been washed off, I'll see if I put too much. So yeah, that's another problem. Don't leave it all clumped up on there. Even though you put a fine silicone layer on there, you still want to make sure that the excess powder is kind of brushed off, because then it can leave, and it doesn't really hurt if it leaves a white residue on there, because eventually it will, like with washing, and you might even have to use your fingertips to rub the silicone residue off. Actually, I mean, you might have to use your fingertips to rub off the excess.